Hello, everyone. Happy holidays. And wow, that's going to be our theme today. This is Ask Dr. Bob. And as those of you that watch regularly know, my name is Dr. Bob Gabbay. I'm the Chief Scientific and Medical Officer here at the American Diabetes Association. And each month we answer your questions. We usually pick a theme that seems appropriate. This time, certainly the holidays seem to be on all of our minds. For some of us, it can't get here soon enough. For some of us, we need a little more time, whatever that might be. But we're going to talk about that in terms of diabetes. And I will also, at the very end, take a little bit of time because people have asked about the standards of care, the new publication that the American Diabetes Association put out. So I'm gonna address that as well. So let's see here. We'll go through your questions, and again, feel free to share this program with your friends and loved ones, and engage with me on social media, where I am on a number of different platforms. Okay, so let's get started. So first question is really a great start. How do you suggest someone living with diabetes plan for the holidays? Well, I think we're going to delve into that in a lot of different ways. And I might start with for those of you that are thinking in advance because you may be hosting events and thinking about the food you might prepare. I've got a great resource for you. It's the ADA's Food Hub, and so it's diabetesfoodhub.org, all one word, diabetesfoodhub.org. And there are all sorts of recipes that you can look at that are sort of diabetes friendly to think about to be able to serve a healthier meal. So let's move from there to someone asking, what's the one best way to manage my diabetes during the holiday gathering? Well, I think some of the biggest challenges around the holidays for a lot of people relate to food. And we'll talk about some strategies there in a moment. But if I were to say one thing, um, it's keeping close monitoring your blood glucose levels so that if you're running into trouble, you know about it, and whether you have a continuous glucose monitor that gives you that information in real time, fantastic tool. But even if not, maybe doing finger sticks a bit more often during this period of time where you know that your routine is a little bit off, that you may be eating a little differently than you normally would. Um, the other things that I would say are, one thing to keep in mind. You can almost think of this balance between food and activity. So you may eat more, but this is a great time for you to think about how you can step up your activity because it almost counteracts the effect of the food. And so, as an example, you've had a nice holiday meal. Think about going for a walk afterwards so you get a little bit of physical activity to counteract that. And then I think the other message I would say is don't get overly stressed. Think about how to manage your stress. The holidays are a stressful time for everybody. And the question I often ask my patients in terms of how they deal with stress is, what do you do that helps you deal with stress? What do you do that brings you joy? And it could be lots of different things, listening to music, whatever that might be. Um, Try to do a little bit more of that kind of stuff. Okay, so let's keep moving. The next question is, how does one make healthier choices at a holiday meal? And so I'll give you a tip. Um, you may be familiar with this idea of the diabetes plate, so to speak. Um, and and so if you think about a plate of food, um, first of all, I would say try to limit yourself to one plate. that's a great start right there because, one tends to go multiple times and, fill up so one plate if possible. And if you looked at that plate and you sort of thought, okay, what am I going to fill it with? Well, half of it should be non-starchy vegetables because they're not going to affect your blood glucose so much. There are not a lot of calories in there, but they help to fill you up. So half the plate is non-starchy vegetables, and then the other half you might divide between some protein, whether that's going to be fish or meat or whatever you're having, um, that other quarter of the plate might be some other vegetables that might be a bit starchy. Again, trying to limit that as much as you can is helpful. Think about that plate, half of it being non-starchy vegetables. So the next question here is, oh, I love this one. Um, how do people with diabetes deal with the food police? I think we've all seen that where people are trying to be helpful, but they're looking over your shoulder as you're eating, saying, "Oh, should you be eating that? Should you be doing that?" Um, first, I would just acknowledge that it probably is coming from a good place, even if it doesn't feel good for you, the person with diabetes. Um, and whether you can pull them aside and have a conversation and say, "Hey, I appreciate you caring about my diabetes, um, but I'm managing it, and too much input's not always helpful." I know this is a delicate thing, and I know a lot of my patients, I see it even in the office where a spouse comes in and one is talking to me, the person with diabetes, and the spouse is like, "Tell them about this and tell them to do that." Like, whoa, slow down. That's not so helpful. Um, let me so we talked about a number of things in terms of dealing with the holidays. Working to reduce stress and do things that help you with stress. Watching your portion size. Using that plate method. Uh, Try not to go for seconds. The third big thing is physical activity and trying to be a bit more active. And don't beat yourself up if you overdid it one day. It's fine. It's the next day will be a new day, and you have a chance to wipe the slate and do better. And for a lot of people, as we get towards New Year's, it's a time to think about um, maybe New Year's resolutions are helpful for you. Some people like them, some don't, whatever works best for you. But maybe thinking about some goals for your health for the new year, I think that can be a helpful way to sort of round out the year. Um, let's just see, in the last couple of minutes, I thought I'd switch gears a little bit and just tell you a little bit about the standards of care. So, this week on Monday, and you may have seen this in USA Today, front page, or a variety of other newspapers and magazines. The American Diabetes Association released what we call the standards of care, and that's the guidelines for the management of diabetes aimed at clinicians, at the people, healthcare professionals. But it's probably worth you knowing some of what those new guidelines are, because you can play an important role in reminding your healthcare provider who's awfully busy to think about certain things. So what I say is some of the new and interesting stuff in there. One is the importance of sleep. And this may be something you don't didn't quite think of, but either too much or too little sleep can affect your diabetes. And so, if you're having sleep issues, it may be something to talk to your healthcare professional. There's a lot of discussion in the new guidelines about reducing vascular risk. We know that people with diabetes, the number one cause of death is heart disease. And the goals for cholesterol are lower. We lowered those goals from what they used to be. So you might ask your healthcare provider, "How's my cholesterol, and is it meeting the new ADA goals?" And then the last thing I'll mention is around blood pressure. So the goal for blood pressure is now lower. Your blood pressure goal should be less than 130 over 80. Less than 130 over 80. That's going to give you the most benefit. And so again, uh, checking your blood pressure at home is a great thing to do, and not just rely on when it's checked when you go to see your healthcare provider. So, a few tips of what's new in the standards of care. And so we come to the end of another year of Ask Dr. Bob, and I want to thank you all for listening and being part of this community. We look forward to next year. Send us your ideas, your questions. Again, I'm Dr. Bob Gabbay, the Chief Scientific and Medical Officer for the American Diabetes Association. And you can follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook. And have a wonderful holiday. Don't stress, enjoy yourself, decompress. And we look forward to seeing you next year. So, all the best. Take care.